On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Since I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a golf pro, and that was my entire livelihood. I focused on golf for 14 years of my life,
Yeah.
moved to Florida for golf, and
Yeah.
then when that was taken away from me, so I moved to Florida, totaled my car, my brother died, my best friend committed suicide, and my ex-girlfriend of 5 years got engaged to be married, all within 6 months of moving to Florida.
Wow.
So that was like getting hit with like by a train. A ton of bricks just hit me at once, and
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of why I was so negative. I just thought it was really easy to be the victim.
Yeah.
Woe is me, and that was kind of my attitude that I took
Yeah.
up until, like I said, one day this one person was like, "You should try to read this book," and I read that book, and then I read it again, and I read it again, and then I'm driving down the road, and sure enough, I just decided to change my mindset.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz, Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today I've got Doug Ford here on the King stage. My brother, Doug. How we doing?
Everything's good. How are you?
I'm well. I sometimes get to say my bearded brother from another mother, but you're the opposite. You got the
Yeah.
clean shave, looking fresh.
It's
Love
funny
it.
because like sometimes I'll like just get bored and I just won't shave for 4 or 5 days, and then it just gets
And
too
you look like me.
itchy. Yeah. Oh no, I don't think I've ever looked quite like you, but and I got a lot of gray in my hair, so I'm all the little kids and stress from business. So it's like I don't like to try to show my gray off too much.
That's right, man. The last year or so, I've been fighting it. I try to stay on top of the grays and pluck them but it's starting to, they're burying me, so I might just give up and go salt and pepper here pretty soon. I'm getting close to 40. I just turned 36. So
It's funny because you'd be surprised. Girls love salt and pepper.
yes. Yeah. Well, as long as my wife does, then we're good.
Well, there you go.
I don't need any other girls that like it. But in all seriousness, Doug, I appreciate you being here, brother. I'm excited for this conversation. Tell us what kind of business that you got.
I've been in the roofing industry for about 14 years right now. It's very interesting. It's something I never thought I'd be in. I was actually a golf pro for many years. That was
Yeah.
my path. And then when I was involved in a really bad car accident, I had to make life decisions, and I've
Wow.
always been more of an entrepreneur. So I was like, what does everybody need?
Yeah.
And
Roof.
roofing is one of those things.
Yeah, it's funny how you phrase it because, we literally say, food and a roof over our heads. Like that's like the
Yeah.
phrase that we say when we talk about our needs,
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, well, you've got obviously a lot in the story, being a golf pro. You've already mentioned that the car accident, a lot of detail that we can get into. I want to get to here in a second. I want to know though, at this stage in the game, you've obviously been uber successful. That's why you're here. Why are you still doing this? Why are you still pushing? Why are you still building?
I think that, when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you have this drive to constantly do, I set goals. Like I have literally, you can't see it, but right in front of me is my affirmations and my goals of what I want to do. And so
Yeah.
every year you're constantly just, setting new goals and trying to achieve them. But obviously it's money isn't everything, but at the same time, money buys you time. So the more money you have at the end of your life, you don't have to work as hard, and you can kind of do the things you love in life. And so by being an entrepreneur, I'm allowed to, afford the luxuries of time and just doing the things I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Freedom, right?
Freedom. Yeah. I mean, they always say money doesn't make you happy, but it doesn't, but it does, it buys you time. So you don't, I don't have to wake up every day and work 9 to 5.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can almost buy everything, even the things that are maybe more conceptual. You can still use money to put in place, whether
Yep.
that's a team or whether that's, systems or even other assets that can pay for things while you do the things that you love. So I love the angle there of freedom. Has it always been like that for you? Is that why you like, or has that grown over the course of time?
So I grew up in a very affluent area in DC, Bethesda, Maryland. My parents were very middle class. We didn't have, big fancy house, big fancy cars. We had lived in an apartment, and I was around wealth, around people that had everything.
Yeah.
So not my mom always told me, she's like, you have a champagne taste and a beer budget. And so I think because of that drive and seeing what was around me, that's what
Yeah.
gave me the drive to want that. And obviously in my younger years, and not to say I'm that, I'm 45 right now, not to say I'm that old, but when I was a lot younger, I wanted more. I wanted big mansions and yachts and this. And it's like, as I started getting older, I realized like, I really just want to enjoy time with my children and my family. And so having these big aspirations were great, but I had to kind of curtail them a little bit to be more realistic to what I'm going through.
Yeah.
So, I enjoy working 5 hours a week now, 10 hours a week, and still making really good money, but I built my business around my ability to have more time to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you're right that, it's obviously dependent upon the entrepreneur and those affirmations and those targets because, if somebody's listening to this show, they're probably trying to level up in some area. And I love it because I'm the same way. I can look over at my board and I can see the same things.
It's right in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And so I also, the picture that you've given to us is that it doesn't have to be about more or flashy or whatever, although it can be, that's fine.
Yeah.
It can be about more time. It can be about more family. It can be about some of those things. And it's interesting because as we talk about here, not only on the show, but inside of my mastermind group, this warrior to king transition. And the warrior is after kind of like survival and maybe more of the material thing, the ambition, like the filling the void type of play. But the maturity of the king is like, man, let me just dial into what's actually important. And then let me just put all effort on that.
Absolutely.
And that might be family. That might be working less. It might be working more. There's no like recipe for that,
Everybody has their own thing that makes them tick.
Yeah. Yeah. But recognizing it, dialing into it is the maturity. Would you agree with that?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to, I grew up in DC. I moved to Florida about 19 years ago, and I was actually a golf pro. Like that was what I was literally trying to make it on tour. I was a +2, +3 handicap. I'd shoot, 65 to 70 on average. And I was involved in a really, really horrific car crash and basically got left not able to play golf ever again. And I'm able to play now, but just not to the level that I was before. I actually just had both my hips replaced 2 years ago. Full hip replacement. I have neck issues, back issues. Like it's been a pretty rough ride, but I went from, being, just being on top of the world. And then that car crash, took everything out of me. Like it was very negative and glass was half empty. It was just not a good place to be. So it took a while to figure out like, all right, well, you realize like, all right, well, I have a good family. I have good friends. I have everything. Why am I so negative? And one day I woke up and I'm like, let's just start being positive.
Yeah.
And that's where honestly my life transformed. Just mindset, just how you perceive where you're at and, where you want to go and setting, like I said before, setting goals and having these ambitions. And that's kind of the start of my career. Is just
well, and I want to know how that led into business. But before, let's hang here in this moment here for a second, because what you're talking about is persistence through tribulation or through the up and the down, or maybe more of the down in this case. But you said you woke up one day and decided I'm going to be positive. Was that literally how it was, or did you read something? Did you watch something?
Yeah,
did
so I
say something to you?
I read a book, and it's a funny book because I read this book probably 4 or 5 times. It's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Okay.
People have read it and they're like, it's really weird because it talks about some scientific stuff, but then it goes about, setting goals. I mean, I was literally driving down the road and I was in one of my cars. I was driving over the bridges in Tampa. And I was driving. It was a really sunny, beautiful day. And I literally going, why am I so unhappy all the time? Why am I?
Yeah.
And that day I remember I was like, from this point forward, I'm going to be, I'm going to just, everything's gonna be positive and be happy. And I just changed my mindset, literally changed my mindset. I decided, because I always tell people right now, I'm like, you either wake up sad or you wake up happy. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You choose, you really decide.
Yeah.
So I decided from that point forward, I'm going to wake up happy.
Yeah. And even if I going off of what you just said, even if I woke up and felt the inkling to be sad, I could still choose to be happy because that's what you did in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so now I do meditation. I meditate. I do a lot. I take, if I'm feeling like I'm gonna have I'm down, I'll take a walk. I feel like walking allows me to just you process things because you're kind of just in a stride. So it's almost like a form of meditation for me. I
Absolutely.
try to do things that just change my mindset that day if I feel like it's coming on, like I'm gonna be negative of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think number one, recognizing what I'm hearing you say to us is number one, recognize that you can choose to be positive. We'll get to the positivity or the positive outlook of being positive, but you
Yeah.
can choose to be positive. And then when you recognize that maybe you're leading towards not being positive, you got some kind of boundaries in place, a walk, some meditation, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's talking to somebody. There's things you
Yep.
can put in place that keep you in the right lane. What's been the benefit of being positive? Like you said, you changed that day.
So
Before you were
I
negative,
feel
now you're
like
positive.
yeah, so I feel like it's one of those things where if you aren't being positive and you're being negative all the time, negative things tend to happen to you.
Yeah,
And if you're it's just like kind of like if you don't set goals, you're leaving your life to chance.
that's right.
If you don't have a pathway, then what you're literally just allowing it to happen to you without you design.
Right. Right. And so now being positive and staying in that lane, you feel that you can
You attract more. You attract things are you attract different things. You attract
yeah,
better people. You attract opportunities. You attract so many different things just by having that positive outlook, that positive attitude. People want to talk to you because you look like you're happy. Why are you so happy? People. It's just you tend to attract better situations.
Now, Doug, I know fully, not only because I know intellectually, but through experience, I know exactly what you're saying is not only accurate, but true in my own life. But there's a listener listening right now that's going, you know what? I don't know what's up with the hocus pocus, Doug Ford. But, but like, so what does he need to know that you and I know that he doesn't know yet about this?
That's a tough one. It's believing. You have to just
Exactly.
believe. I mean, if you're not, if you are, and because I was there, I was very negative, and I would always have people tell me, "Doug, why are you so like?" Here's my outlook on life. I was like, "Well, if this happens, I'm just going to go about this. It's going to happen negatively, but if it happens positively, great, awesome." So I was always going into something very negative. But
Yeah.
then when you start like just becoming positive and you like it's a slow, it's almost like a snowball effect where
Yeah.
it gradually just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's you have to believe that just by being positive, these things will happen to you. And it doesn't happen overnight. Like if I looked at my timeline, it was probably a year or two where it really started like, wow, like it actually does work. It
Yeah.
doesn't, you have to just believe and you have to just continue down that path and eventually things will change in your life.
Yeah, I love that. And also too, I haven't heard you say that you have to be positive in order to be successful, because I actually think that there's a lot of pretty negative successful people.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So, I mean, there's people I know the most miserable multimillionaires in the world, and
Right.
they're miserable, but they're multimillionaires. So you don't have to be, to be successful, you don't have to be happy.
Yeah. There's success principles and then there's fulfillment,
Yes.
right? Or happiness. And so what I'm hearing you say is, okay, so we can be successful. That's what we're here to talk about here today is some good and bad decisions that you've made and help us be successful. Okay. But there's principles that I can hang to inside a business that will make me successful or keep me from success. Either way, I can choose to have happiness or fulfillment inside of what I'm doing, right?
Yep.
All right. I want to know a little bit more of the story here. So you're golf pro, you think that you're going on tour, you
I
get
mean,
creamed in a
it's a
car
very tough thing
accident.
it's a very tough thing to do going tour. But yeah, I mean, I had my game was pretty decent. My
Yeah.
mind may have not have been as good because a lot of those guys on tour are just so mentally strong. When you get
Right.
on the first tee and you have thousands of people surrounding you, it's tough
Right.
to hit the first tee ball.
That's right.
So, but yeah, just I was like that was my since I was 10 years old. I wanted to be a golf pro, and that was my entire livelihood. I focused on golf for 14 years of my life.
Yeah.
Moved to Florida for golf. And
Yeah.
then when that was taken away from me, so I moved to Florida, totaled my car, my brother died, my best friend committed suicide, and my ex-girlfriend of 5 years got engaged to be married, all within 6 months of moving to Florida.
Wow.
So that was like getting hit with like by a train. A ton of bricks just hit me at once, and
Oh yeah.
that's kind of why I was so negative. I just thought it was really easy to be the victim.
Yeah.
Woe was me, and that was kind of my attitude that I took.
Yeah.
Up until, like I said, one day this one person was like, "You should try to read this book." And I read that book and then I read it again and I read it again. And then I'm driving down the road and sure enough, I just decided to change my mindset. And
How
and this is no joke from, and this isn't a talk about money or anything, but my life went on a 45-degree incline from that day to say like this past year of, you know, worth 10, $15 million in that time period, just from in
right.
10 years, going from 0 to 15.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Yeah.
It's something that you can do as anyone can do. You set your mind to do something, you can do it.
Yeah. The courage that you're just breathing right into the microphone right now, it it comes across sometimes to somebody who doesn't believe it as like, "Oh, I hear you, but like, but is that really for me? Like, can I really go do that?" And so what I'm hearing you say simply enough is it's going to take a little bit of time. If you believe that it can happen, you'll put towards action towards to get there. Now, how did that day for you changing to be positive turn into you becoming a business owner?
So this is gonna sound really funny. I never read a book until I was 30 years old.
Okay.
I went through elementary school, hated reading. Went through high
Can
school,
relate.
hated reading.
Yep.
Middle school, hated reading. College, I mean, I passed it. Went through college. I mean, I passed everything. I got my degrees. I never read a book in my entire life.
Sounds like you were resourceful like I was.
I just, I can hear things and I can retain it. I just hated reading. And then I read that one book, and then from that point forward, I started reading more and more books, just
Wow.
about business, life, this, that, and I enjoyed actually reading those books.
Yeah.
And then from that knowledge, I was like, you know what, I really want to start a company. I mean, I started, and I started multiple companies, and we can go into that, or we can back up a little bit. But yeah, I started multiple companies and failed multiple times, and
Wow.
then I realized what I was doing wrong. And then once I realized that, then I dove headfirst into the company I'm currently running.
Yeah. Well, give us a quick snapshot of what something that you had done before and tell us what was the missing key. What like that's what we're here for, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started, I always had partners. It was something I never did. I never went on my own to try something.
Oh,
I started like a company that was like we worked for UPS and all these different companies, and we would sell we'd go door to door and sell their stuff, to try to get more shipping companies.
right.
Then I started a company that we did a car custom shop where we'd take your car and we build a show car out of it.
Sure.
I did a what was it? A office. We sold office supplies.
Okay. Yeah,
Just
all the
small
works.
companies. But the problem, I always found out that is because I didn't go head first. I
Mm,
was, I
weren't
put
all
money
in.
into these things, and I had partners, but I was kind of more leaning on them to do stuff instead of
Yeah.
myself getting more my hands dirty and getting involved. And once I realized that, that's when I started my roofing company, and I went headfirst. I was working, I don't want to say I worked 90 hours a week because I didn't, but I was all in, and I made
Yeah.
sure that I had nothing else I was doing except for all in on roofing. And by being all in is how I became successful. If I never would have done that, and I just would have relied on other people, I'd still be a failure. It's
Yeah.
just I had to go all in order to go all in. That's what made me what I am today.
Yeah, I think you're making a really important distinction. Actually, two pieces I want to pull out here for the listener, and then ask you a couple follow up questions. But I'm hearing number one is that you have to have an obsession or be all in, and then the difference between that and doing it yourself, because that sounds as if maybe you came in and did it all yourself, which you took more ownership, but obviously you don't build a ginormous company and have a 15 million net worth over 10 years by doing it all yourself. So
Correct.
let's delineate here. Did I hear you right in saying that you jumped in all in commitment wise, but yet you still had to be able to delegate, build a team, hire well? Like, am I hearing you right
Yeah,
on
so
that?
I mean, I have a business partner who's more of a handshake. He runs, he's in the roofing industry. Like, he's been in the roofing industry for 40 years. So I
Yeah.
went ahead and found somebody like I've always been, you always been told you shouldn't be the smartest person in your company. You want to have your team around you be the smartest people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hire the smartest lawyers. I have the smartest accountants. I have the best, project managers. I have the best roofers. I'm not out there doing roofing. I've never installed a roof in my entire life. I
Yeah.
literally have never installed a roof ever. But
Yeah.
my team around me is I've built up people around me that are the best in the industry,
Yeah.
and that's how I was able to do what I've done. And for my sort of side of roofing, I've actually niched myself. I do mostly tile roof, and what I found out was, by niching myself, I'm able to demand higher pricing. My profit margins are greater, but I'm able to differentiate myself from other roofers. When I go to a job, they know when I go to a tile job, I sell 70% of all of them because I have the best. I have the best process. I have the best everything. So it's easier to be successful, at least in my sort of industry, if I niche myself into something to be the best at something. There's
Yeah.
so many roofers out there that just want to be generic roofers. They do flat, they do this, they do that, but they're not really good at anything.
Yeah. Yeah. They can kind of just do them all as opposed to being
But
able to really.
they're okay roofs, but they're not great. When I go up against them, you can see the difference between my roof versus their roof.
Yeah. Again, you're just dropping so many good points here. I want to pull out a couple things for the listener. Number one, you chuckled when you said I've never installed a roof, but that's really, really important here because there is a difference in the business between being a tradesman or being a roofer or being a technician or a marketer or whatever the skill set is and being an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur is everything you're talking about. We're building a system, we're building a team, we're
Yep.
putting right people in place, we're growing sale, like all this stuff kind of all at once, more of an architect, right? An architect of culture inside the business and even out. And so, okay, so I hear you on that. So for the guy listening right now, that was for you who you're doing everything. Stop.
Yeah.
Doug
Absolutely.
himself hasn't even installed a roof. If that's not
So let me
courage,
clarify
right?
that. Let me clarify. I have in my one of my old houses, I built a little shed. It was
I
like
love
a,
it.
and so I put a skylight in it. I did everything, and I actually installed my own little roof by myself. But it's like one square,
Yeah.
100 square feet. But just so I want to see if I could do it, I tried. It
Yeah.
hasn't leaked yet, so obviously I did a pretty good
You
job.
did a pretty good job. Yeah. You didn't put that that warranty that you put on those big giant tile roofs, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess the encouragement there for the listener is that you don't have to be the expert. You can, like Henry Ford said, I can push a button and I have experts all around me.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important.
But I do believe, and this is something that I think anyone starting a business, I believe you have to wear every hat. I know a lot of my
Some point.
friends, I've tried to help them with business, and that's something that they've not grasped onto, and they fail because of it. Like when you start a company, you have to understand marketing. You have to understand the finance part of it. You have to
Right.
understand the job process. You have to understand customer service. There's so many. You have to understand it all in order to be successful. So that's why I think the more I read and the more I dove into just learning about business is
Yeah.
what helped me. Because if you go into business and you're just a roofer and you don't understand any of the things behind being a roofer,
Right.
it's why you're going to fail. You don't have the marketing behind you. You don't have the money behind you. You don't have the process behind you. You don't have anything except for how to understand and install a roof. And that's honestly a lot of the people I bid against because they're just roofers trying to start a business and
Yep.
they're going to fail in 5 to 7 years, if not earlier.
If not earlier. Yeah.
And usually those are my biggest nemesis because they're the ones underbidding me on everything. And I call them chucking the trucks. They're just a chuck in the.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of truth in what you're saying. It doesn't even have to be in the trades. It can be in any industry. It's the guy that's starting the business and he's either small, which is fine for a period of time. But inside of that, what I'm hearing you say is you've got to learn all the areas. It doesn't mean that you learn all the areas so that you do all the areas all
Correct.
the time. It just means that you learn it so that when you hire it, you know how to manage it.
Yes. And when you're doing that too, in the beginning, you want to almost create your processes early on. I mean,
While you're doing it.
Yes, the processes are always going to change. I mean, they are
Yes.
always going to change. But as long as you have a baseline and you're creating those processes along the way, it makes it easier once you start wanting to hire people on.
Absolutely. Yeah. What you just said is really, really key because there's so many easy things to do today with Google Sheets and Drive and a freaking iPhone where you can record yourself. Like literally just step by step what you do, record yourself doing it or record your screen, throw it in a folder and then boom, like it doesn't have to be that complicated. You can create SOPs and systems like pretty easily.
Absolutely.
People just aren't thinking about it. They're just doing, they're busy.
Yeah. I mean,
They're busy.
CRMs nowadays are so transformed. What they do for your business, it just streamlines everything.
Yeah.
So as long as you at least understand that and find the right CRM for your business, that alone will help the process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit of a center point, and you can get your balance if you got a center point.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned niching. I want to touch on that just real quick here, and maybe it's your good decision. I've got a question coming up about good decisions. So if this is the same, then mirror these things together. But you niched. A lot of people are afraid to do that because if I give up the flat roofs and all the other roofs, the asphalt, all the other stuff, then like I might lose out on money. That's their fear. So they're operating out of fear, not necessarily like I'm going to be the tile expert. I get to raise my prices. I get to create a system just for tile, which then is going to exude to my client that I'm the absolute tile expert, which then again goes back to price, the whole deal. Like, so talk to the guy right now listening about why you did it and maybe why it was maybe a good decision.
So, especially with tile, there's not a lot like, you're taking, let's say a 60 square house, you're taking off 60,000 pounds worth of tile, and you're putting 60,000 pounds worth of tile back on the roof. And it's so much harder to install than a shingle roof. And there's so many different ways it can be done. And so with a shingle roof, there's only one way to install a shingle roof. But a tile roof, there's like 5 or 6 different ways you could actually install it. So I just created a better mousetrap. I looked at a tile roof, what was failing and what can I make better? And I looked at the numbers on, like a 60 square house is a $50,000-$60,000 roof. Well, I can get that done in 4 or 5 days, where a 50 square shingle job, you get 3 days, but I'm making $20,000 profit on that tile roof versus $4,000 profit on a shingle roof.
Right.
So would I rather do 5 shingle roofs, 6 shingle roofs with all that, you're all the warranties you have to deal with, or I do 1 tile roof?
Right.
As an owner, I'd rather do 1 because I'm only having to worry about that 1 roof. Plus, in general, like the way I've created my process, it's a foolproof system. Like it doesn't fail. When we have hurricanes, it doesn't leak. And it was a much easier for me to sleep at night to have a roof that I installed knowing there's never gonna have any issues.
Yeah, the cool part about what you just said is that you created a system to where, of course, you make more money, but the person on the other end that you're doing the deal for gets a superior product. Not only the superior system and probably an experience, but at the end, the actual product that they walk away with is worth the extra money that they're paying for you, and they're probably happy to do it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, most of my clients are higher end, so they'll shell over 100 grand and be happy about it because they don't have the peace of mind. They know that it's not going to have any issues. And I always tell people, there's not anything in the world you don't get what you pay for. You tell me a good watch that's not expensive, a good car that's not expensive, a good nice clothing, like everything in life you pay for. If you're going for the cheapest everything, that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get a quality product.
Which kind of goes back to that attracting piece. Would you agree? You were talking about being negative and positive, and what you expect is kind of what you get.
Absolutely.
Is it the same thing with being cheap and being aware of what you pay for things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so is niching the good decision that you want to share with us, or is there something else in the business that you're like, dude, I did this and it changed everything?
I think going back on the things that I failed, and I think partners are a big thing. My good decision was picking up the right partner. I think that was a big key decision for me. Going about it, like I said, hiring the right people is the good decision. But not going about myself. That was my good decision. My business partner.
You mentioned people here, partners and people.
Yeah.
How would you suggest one listening find a good partner or hire good people? Is there something that's like on your radar that you're looking for?
Yeah. So for me, I found a guy that was in the tile industry for 20 some years that had been a tile guru. And it was a timing thing. I think a lot of things in life are timing. You like you said, you meet the right people at the right time and things happen. He happened to be, this was during the Great Recession. I met him, we played golf together, and he had a $20 million company doing really well. And I worked for him for about a year doing sales. And in the beginning, I'm like, how I don't know anything about roofing. So he kind of took me under his wing and showed me roofing stuff. And then I watched everything he did wrong and failed. And then when I went back to school, got my master's, I was like, I want to start a roofing company. And that's kind of when all this timeline of everything happened. I called him back up. I'm like, hey, let's go in this together. And then that's the end of the story. So I was able to pick up the right partner. And I think that's what was my good decision in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So let's flip the coin. What about the bad decision that you look back on and you're like, Chaz, stay away, far, far away?
Who you marry. I think a life partner. Not to say that I despise my soon to be ex-wife, but I think that she was, you have to align your goals and your aspirations. And that was a big thing. Is like I'd probably be even more successful today if I didn't have a wife that kind of held me back. And now I'm going through a divorce, I'm losing millions of dollars. And it's just like, obviously that's a tough thing to take. I was actually trying to sell my company a couple of years ago and retire at 40.
Right.
And now my timeline's more like, all right, I'll build my company back up and retire at 50. So, things change, everything in life happens for a reason, but at the same time, I think being diligent about, do due diligence on who you marry, who you decide to be your life partner, make sure that you have the same values, make sure you have the same aspirations, similar, you don't have to be similar people. Cause they always say like, I don't think that really matters, but love language is a big thing. Like having, understanding their love language and be able to communicate that. But a life partner, I think, is a really, really big decision in being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most, if it's not the most important, it's at least top 3. And so you're 100% right on that. A lot of people don't think about that, or maybe they got married before business.
Yeah, I mean, I started my company 6 months before I got married, and in the beginning, I think, we were fine, but we just drifted apart, and her once I started working more to build what we have, I
Right.
was getting ridiculed, by working too much. Yeah, you're working too much. And it's like, so you knew I was gonna be an entrepreneur, you knew I was gonna get on this path, but then you make me feel like I'm doing something wrong, and that's just not cool at all.
Yeah.
You want to have a partner that supports you and pushes you and helps you, and not
Yeah.
have something that holds you back.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a whole, obviously, topic in itself. We could probably do a whole podcast on it, but what for you? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening right now, potentially even men who are going, yeah, she should support me, and
No,
you're right. I'm with
when
you.
I say support, I don't mean like, financially. It's more like just
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 like
emotionally.
100%. And I'm with you. I agree. And I think that that's how they're hearing it. What is their responsibility as the entrepreneur who is going to be working a lot and driving and building all of the success and building the lifestyle and the net worth and the future generations and the legacy and all the stuff that we're doing? What is our role in that for that support player? Because you're right. That person, my wife, Julie, she needs to support me. She knows that I run hard, like
Yep.
harder than most. Okay. And so, but I still have a responsibility to her. What is that?
So there's multiple things you can go into that. So for me, like,
Mhm.
it's understanding what can make their life a little easier too. Like,
Right.
what are their love languages? Is it you doing stuff for them? Is it you complimenting them? Is it, what are you doing to help them out? Because obviously if you have children, and it's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
And
Work.
my ex-wife worked as well. She worked from 6 to 3, so I
Wow.
tried to do what I could to make her, like, I'd always take the kids to school. I'd pick them up. I would, I'd always make so she didn't have to cook all the time. I always just try to make her life easier,
Yeah.
even though I was working a lot. What you
Yeah.
still have to be able to still be a husband and a father as well as entrepreneur. So you have to kind of balance yourself and balance your day to be able to provide for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. This is an interesting question. I've inserted this question. I told you before I hit the recording button, I've got a couple of secret questions I like to throw in now, and this is one of them. And so you just use the word balance. You got to balance yourself. And I understand what you're saying. You have to be able to do all of it. The word balance is a difficult word for me to understand, just because you and I both know that really we're obsessed. We're obsessive nature. We're all in. You already said that was like one of your key reasons for success is that you went all in. How have you gone all in on the family or kids now? Or what would you suggest that the listener do to stay away from maybe some of the things that you're going through right now?
I mean, for me, I'm a little later in life as far as my business goes. So my business is already kind of like it's at a level where it sustains
Yeah.
itself. So by going
Yeah.
for me, I just spend as much time with my children as I can. I, do the activities with them. I'm always just kind of making sure that I'm inserted in their life.
Right.
Now I'm going through a divorce, so my girlfriend now that I'm dating, I just make sure that I'm touching all the key points for her. Making
Yeah.
sure that I'm being the man that she wants me to be, and understanding the communication between us. 'Cause I think that in life and as in marriage, communication is key. And I think that,
Yeah.
like they say, men are from Venus, women from Mars. If you don't understand how to communicate, that's gonna be detrimental to your marriage or your relationship. So, that it's just for me, it's like I'm a giver, so I enjoy giving. Like I enjoy, giving my time to people. I enjoy giving, gifts. I enjoy doing things for others. So that's just kind of
Right.
something. And being an entrepreneur, like I always call them, my hands. Like my employees are my hands. I'm going to always treat my hands really well. That's one thing in business is like you always want to treat your employees well.
Yeah.
I have some of the highest paid roofers. I have the highest paid. Like my guys all make 6 figures. Everyone in my company does really well, and I think by doing that, that's why I do well. For me, money is money is kind of a byproduct. Like I'm kind of going backwards, but for me, money is a
So,
byproduct of making people happy.
yeah.
Like I don't focus on business to make money. I focus on business to make people happy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're just dropping some just really, really, really deep stuff on us. Doug, I'm like, I'm
an
trying to,
hour is enough because I could go for an hour. Like, you know what I mean? Like I could
I
go
love
for
it.
hours. So it's like I'm trying to like figure out where to drop certain things, but it kind of
Yeah.
flows into it.
Yeah. I hope the listener's paying attention. That's really what I hope, because you're giving real, authentic, this is actually happening to you, has happened to you. And, I just think it's just really, really valuable. So I
So
mean,
I'll go back on one point because I deal
yeah,
with a lot of like a lot of my friends or colleagues that they're trying to start businesses, and that thing I just said, money is a byproduct and make people happy. That's something business owners should focus on because one of my college professors, and this always stuck with me. He says, "Is if you have the best customer service, you'll always have a business.
yeah,
It's the people that have bad customer service that will eventually fail. So if you're always making people happy, if you're always doing something to even if you're losing money to make that person happy, who cares?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Make your business about making that customer happy versus making money from them. And I think
yeah,
that the more you do that, it will eventually come.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that is a huge key point for anyone starting out their business. You're not going to always make money in the beginning, but if you always making everybody happy, no matter what you do, you
yeah,
will always have a good business.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And obviously margins and making money is important and you have to start working that in and growing the bottom line. But the point that you just made is so and actually I loved how you put it into practicality, like whether it's your employees, whether it's your clients, whether it's your spouse or your kids, like if your intention is to go into this situation, this relationship, whatever it is, to give and to make sure that the other person is on the other side better than they started before, it's tough not to have a lot of value coming out, and then eventually what happens is that value starts to come back.
Absolutely.
What do you
Absolutely.
have as far as like a decision-making process? Something comes across your desk right now and, it's a fairly weighty decision. Is there a certain flow that you kind of like to go through to make good decisions?
I mean, if yeah, you got to sort of give me a instance because there's so many decisions I make on a daily basis. So I'd have to have sort of a
Yeah.
give me a decision you think I
Maybe maybe it's a client whether you want to work with them. Maybe it's a new, $100,000 marketing initiative. Like anything that just has a little bit of stickiness to it where you just got to think about it a little bit. Tell us how you think about a decision.
I mean, for a marketing stuff, I'm going to look at ROI, like what's my return on investment. When it comes to taking on a client, like I look at past experiences. Like I'm going through a issue right now. I have a I have a guy that I installed a flat roof, and I it was a really small roof. So we got there, it was full of water, and so we had to tear it up, vacuum out all the water. We had to repitch it, put all new plywood down, put a rolled roofing on it, and then we coated it with this white silicone. Well, the white started turning a little bit yellow because there's oils that kind of seep through sometimes they seep through. The guys start complaining. So I'm like, all right, well, I go and seal it with a tan silicone. Well, the guy's got leaves galore on this roof and it starts getting discolored. And so he's complaining again. So I go out there and personally, and I start talking to the guy and he's complaining about this and that. And I'm like, and I'm pointing out what he's talking about is completely false, but he's a lawyer. So he knows everything. And so it comes down to it where I'm like, you know what, let me cut these little bubbles out and I'll take care of it again. Well, now the guy is complaining again, and now he wants my insurance information. So I've called my lawyer. My lawyer's like, "Let him pound sand. He's got to sue you."
Yeah.
So my thing is like, and this is like the third or fourth lawyer I've done business with that I'm like, you know,
Ding 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 ding.
maybe I find out what the profession is, and I need to raise that price a little bit, so maybe I don't get the job. And I'm
Yeah,
not saying all lawyers are bad, but this one is a particular there, and I don't know if I'm allowed to drop certain law firms out there, but this one's a particular law firm that does a lot of marketing, and they're it's one of those annoying law firms that goes after tons of storm damage and this or that. So
sure.
that right there kind of was a red flag I should have picked up on
Yeah.
before we did the
Yeah.
job. But
Yep.
it's understanding things in your past
Yep.
and maybe not making the same mistake in the future.
Love
And
it.
it's nice in business as you become more successful, you can pick and choose your clients a little bit. And I
That's
think
right.
that is one of the greatest things is when I go, what, I don't need that job because I don't need the headache. I don't need the money anymore to deal with those headaches because I can kind of
That's right.
foresee these problems happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a tough thing to build, that
Yes.
resistance of going, "No, I actually don't want that." But it's the very thing that helps you transition to a higher mindset, a maturity in thinking and going, "No, actually, these don't align. I don't align with you, with this, with that." It's funny because I have clients and even portfolio companies of mine where we'll have a conversation and I'm a sales guy, so I like to get into the nitty-gritty sometimes and just like, "Hey, remind me what's going on in here." And something will bubble up like a lawyer or a super highly detailed something or other. And they've asked 17 extra requests before they've even signed the deal. And I'm like, wait a second, don't sign that deal.
Yeah.
And the times that they have, they're like, man, should have listened to you.
Yeah. I mean, like when
Like,
I was
well,
doing my own sales, like when I would, in the beginning of my company, I did everything. So I did sales and market, I did everything. So I was
yeah,
able to read people, but back then I needed the jobs, you know what I mean? And so
yep.
then now that I have
You just
multiple
figure it out.
salespeople, they come to me like, yeah, this client's a little bit, they're asking a lot of like, this could be a problem. I'm like, all right, we're gonna have to, let's raise the price just a little bit. So if we get it, great, we'll deal with it. But
Yep.
let's not lower the price to try to get that job.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think everything what you're just saying as far as the practical price raising or lowering, like that comes from number one, having a pipeline. If you have a pipeline full of opportunities, then you say, man, I don't need that one because I've got plenty.
Yeah.
If it's your only one, you're like, oh, I need it. So you kind of
Yeah.
become desperate.
Right.
Inside of that, though, it is okay to like just bump up the price because based on history, that it's probably going to be more difficult and you might have to go out 2 or 3 or 4 times potentially.
Yep.
So all you're doing is saying, hey, I'm building in the cost. And if he's willing to do it, then great. He'll sign the contract, he'll do the deal. And potentially you've buffered yourself just like you have for the material and just like you have for the labor costs. And there's no moral issue in raising the price for something like that.
Yeah. I mean, so going back on a couple of things, if I didn't know what I know now, the one thing I may have done a little differently is I strive to make every customer happy. But in my industry, I technically, unless they sell their home, I'm never going to have them as a client again.
Right.
So that's always been a tough thing. So I'm always having to find new clients, always having to, like you said,
Yep.
the pipeline, the marketing to drum up this new business.
Yeah.
So reoccurring revenue, that's something that I think is a very smart business decision. Finding a type of business that's reoccurring revenue.
Yeah.
That's something that I've wish I would have done a little more of, or even had a side business that does that. So that's,
Right.
if you're starting out, like look for some sort of opportunity with reoccurring.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I want to go to our speed round here, Doug. Inside of your KPIs, all the things that you track inside your business, what would be the one thing, if you can only pick one to track forever and ever, everything falls to the side, what would that one thing be that you would track?
So when you say, so you mean like in my CRM or in like in my numbers, like what?
Any of it. Inside of your whole business.
One thing I'm going to track.
Yeah.
I'm going to track ROI.
Okay. Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I mean, like, what marketing's working? If I track like what, all my marketing, I have a specific, like, all right, we spent this much on marketing for this, and we
Yep.
know exactly what our ROI is on all those sort of things.
Yep.
So I know what money I dump into certain types of marketing, they're going to make me more money.
Yeah. That number for you is okay. So if I can put more coins in this machine here, more comes out the bottom.
Correct. Yeah. So by tracking your what you're spending on marketing and understanding what your ROI is on each individual types of marketing, I think that is key for any business.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. What book would you recommend or a resource since you're an avid reader now and an avid education guy?
It's a stupid book, but The Happy Pocket Full of Money was a start. It almost has a similar stuff as like The Secret. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
It's similar mindset, but it's a simple read. Like I literally can read it in a day and a half, or I have an audio, listen to my car, for a 5-hour car ride.
Yep.
But that just for me, and it's a dumb book, honestly. If you read something, you're like, it's kind of stupid, but that right there changed my life. If I had never read that book, I don't know if I'd be in the position I am right now.
Yeah, incredible.
And it's not even a book, I don't think. I think you have to find it like I have a PDF of it. It's like something I found, and my friend's like, just read this. And I did.
Yeah.
And obviously it's been life transformational.
Yeah. I mean, the reality underneath that is that you were looking, you were ready.
Yeah.
You were looking and ready. And that just happened to be the key for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really, really awesome that you have that little place to be able to go back to. We all have those things, whether it's a book or a moment when someone speaks into us or whatever, but thanks for sharing that. What do you think about intentionally networking or masterminding with other entrepreneurs?
I think early on, I think it's great. For me, I'm at the point now, I don't really feel like I need to just brush shoulders with the right, I'm a member of a pretty nice country club here. So I play golf with higher end people and get clients from that as well. But
Yep. Yeah, so you're doing it
I'm not a
in a
networker
different way.
anymore. I still do, I still every now and then I'll go to like a Grant Cardone event.
Sure.
I'll do something like that here and there, but it's not really to network. It's just to gain one piece of information. If I can get one one piece of information that could help me is all I go to those things for. It's not really to meet people, because I feel like a lot of people that go to those events aren't, not to say that I'm anything special, but aren't at my level of success. They're trying to find something. They're trying to give themselves aspirations to do things. So for me, it's just finding one piece of advice that's something I just don't know.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that mindset of just the one thing, when you really like understand how money works, one piece of information that changes something in your business. I mean, $20,000 conference, $100,000 conference or meeting or group or whatever. Like when you really understand like one little thing or one little connection or whatever, like It doesn't take too many $100,000 roofs to
Yeah.
pay for it.
Yeah, for me, like I was at a conference like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was all about like the upcoming of Airbnb, and I was like short-term rentals versus, I have a bunch of rentals, so I was like, I I'm gonna make so much more money on short term. So
Yeah.
I basically sold a bunch of rentals and bought a beach condo, and now it's like creating a lot more revenue because it's
Right.
short term versus long term.
Yep.
So I got that one piece of advice, and that's kind of where I shifted my mindset. Like I don't really want to. I want to have all more short term rentals, Airbnbs versus having monthly rentals.
Yeah, and I love how you made a distinction here between networking and growing, trying to get clients, because I think that's you're right. Early on, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love networking. I mean, we're networking right now. Like,
Yeah, of
we
course.
might do a deal together potentially. We do an Airbnb on the beach. The point is that you just never know. That's fine, no big deal. But the one pieces here, and gathering the kings. That's actually how it started before the podcast. Was this mastermind where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily need you to come in and give me advice. I feel like I'm a pretty successful individual, but I want to still learn. So there's that balance between I've got things kind of figured out, but I know I'm not all the way figured out. I'm gonna learn it all. I don't want to be a know-it-all. So how do I put myself around a Doug Ford? How do I put myself around, a Matt Kuhlhorn? How do I put myself around an Austin Watterson? Like all these guys where it's like, okay, he just did something and he didn't even know that he was like teaching me. I just heard him talking about something that he was
Yeah.
doing or a situation that he's dealing with. I'm like, let me
Yes.
take a quick note on that,
Yeah, I always tell people if you can just pull one piece of information, anything you go to, it's a win.
Absolutely. Okay. I got one last question here for you, Doug. If you could whisper in the younger Doug's ear, what would you say?
What would I say? I think that I would start off with how I started this whole, being positive. I was always a happy kid, and growing up where I grew up, it was just a not saying it was difficult because obviously you're around a bunch of rich kids, but
Right.
they're rich kids tend to pick on you, and they would always like make fun of me because I smiled a lot. Like, why are you so happy all the time? And I became kind of like stone faced because I just got picked on for being happy.
Happy.
And so it's like, if I could go back and tell myself, just don't listen to what other people are telling you and just be yourself and be positive and be happy. Because if I would have been, that mindset back then, or that's one piece, but obviously business is something that I think that you should start understanding earlier on in life. Money and business. Now, my parents were really good about making me understand money. They gave me a credit card, I think, when I was 14 years old, and it was like, look,
Oh.
this is how you manage it, and then I had a job. I had 3 jobs when I was 14 years old. I worked at a gas station, I worked at a grocery store, I worked at a golf course, and I bought my first car when I was 15 before I could
Yeah.
even drive. So just understanding, if I would understand more business back then, like, so for my kids, they're at a school now that it's all about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like they're at 7 and 9 years old, they're looking at trying to start things and do things.
Yep.
So I think that is just being forced to understand finance and business, and then just having the mindset. I think mindset is everything in life.
Yeah.
Mindset is huge, and
Yeah.
so many people just don't even think about it.
Yeah. They don't have the right think. Doug, you've been incredible. Even just the last little bits that you gave to us, just drop the mic, ready to roll. How can the listeners find you if they're in your area and they need a beautiful new tile roof, or if they just want to pick your brain or shoot around a golf with you?
Yeah.
How
So,
can they find
I have my website, which is just suncoastroofing.com. I would give my personal cell phone number out, but it's my business line. So I never answer it. So you're welcome to leave me a message. That's
Yeah,
going to be
that's
813-305-7403. So feel free to shoot me a text, or, usually text is best, but I don't really answer that phone. I have a personal number that I won't give out to anybody, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's my business cell phone. I just never answer
Awesome.
it, but I will read my messages, and I will, get the messages and call people back accordingly.
Sounds good, man. Well, I think that you've given a lot here today, and for that, I'm thankful. I hope that the listener feels the same way. But blessings on you, your children, your business, your team, everything that you guys are working on in 23.
Yeah,
Thank you for being
I am very fortunate, and it's great to feel this way. Obviously, I'm going through a lot of tough stuff right now with my divorce, but in general, the outlook is still great.
It's positive.
Yeah, always. I've always if you can turn a negative to a positive, that's what you need to do in life, because you're always gonna have negatives. So figure out a way to turn that into a positive,
That's
because
right.
there's always a way to do it.
I love it. Thanks for being here, Doug.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.